I won't let my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis symptoms define me.
Emerge as you. In 2 clinical studies, Tremfya guselkumab, taken by injection, provided 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks in 7 out of 10 adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. In a study, nearly 7 out of 10 patients with 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks were still clearer at 5 years. At 1 year and thereafter, patients and healthcare providers knew that Tremfya was being used. This may have increased results. Results may vary.
Serious allergic reactions may occur. Tremfya may increase your risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms of infection, including fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough. Tell your doctor if you had a vaccine or plan to.
Emerge as you. Learn more about Tremfya, including important safety information at tremfya.com or call 1-877-578-3527. See our ad in Food and Wine magazine. For patients prescribed Tremfya, cost support may be available.
This is a Bramble Jam podcast.
Welcome to Girls Gone Hallmark, a Hallmark review podcast. I'm Megan, and I'm a longtime Hallmark fan.
I'm Wendy. I'm a former Hallmark hater.
Today we are back with our listener mailbag episode, talking all things The Way Home. This is our 8th installment of our listener mailbag episode, and we want to thank the listeners who make these episodes possible. For all of your insightful thoughts, emails, the best way to reach us is girlsgonehallmark@gmail.com.
Hey, if you are looking for a Hallmark Facebook group, with like-minded Hallmark individuals who are talking about all things Hallmark, not just The Way Home, please come join us. We are Girls Gone Hallmark in Facebook groups.
And our first comments come in from Instagram, where you can follow us. We are Girls Gone Hallmark. And the first comment, question, theory is from Emily, who says, I love hearing your podcast weekly about The Way Home. I wanted to ask if you saw how Nick told Del that Claire was like her. I wonder if Claire is Del's secret, since in the earlier episode, it showed how Del seemed pregnant. If Claire is the baby that Del had, and she is sending the letters. And I wonder if the letters have invisible writing on them, since that was very important this season. If so, then the letters have more writing to them that we don't know of. Anyway, I can't wait to listen to your next podcast.
OMG.
I had not thought about invisible writing on the letters.
Neither have I. I do remember this scene between Nick and Del, and we had concluded, or maybe I concluded, I was like, oh, he's talking about Susanna, because their kind of, demeanor is the same. But what if Claire is the child of Del? Maybe the baby in the basket. Maybe she's very similar to her.
Yeah, maybe a baby she had to give up. Maybe.
Wow.
That is an interesting theory.
I really like this. And as you know, I am easily influenced.
Me too.
Our next message is from Janice. Janice writes, some thoughts on The Way Home. Where does everyone get these rules of the pond? Because Elliot kept notes and deemed them rules, ? Just because they haven't experienced it yet doesn't mean it can't happen. These are all very good points.
Mm-hmm.
She also writes, also, Kat sure took the news of Elliot and Emma's kiss as an excuse to put a pause on everything when she had kissed Thomas multiple times, at least once since she and Elliot have been official, and she's never mentioned him to Elliot. To Elliot? To Thomas.
It's Elliot. She's talking about,
good.
She's never mentioned her, Thomas kisses to Elliot.
Okay. All right. Finally, she writes, I keep waiting for Chris Holden Reed to show up in a contemporary time as the great-grandson of one of the Coyles, maybe to seek out Kat because of her book.
I wonder if we're talking about Susanna's book here. that Kat published. Or the
yeah,
book.
I think we.
Yeah.
I think we are. Yeah.
Let's talk about the rules of the pond.
Okay, go ahead.
So these are good questions. And it's a question you raised earlier in the season. Like we always talk about, like, we can't forward time travel because Elliot said so. But like, what does Elliot know? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think these are good questions. I think there's two things happening here. One, we have to establish rules about things that we don't know anything about simply so that like we can have a framework to view it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take some of the speculation that we could be so far off about, but that the fixing of the clock will allow people to time travel forward, I just wonder if the writers of the show are like, these freaking dummies. Right? Elliot's rule about you can't time travel forward is in fact true. You cannot unless you have this additional piece. But everyone's right. Elliot doesn't know. All the rules that we've assumed about the pond, nobody knows. It's a pond. It can't tell us.
Yeah.
These are good questions.
Good questions. Yes.
The next question comes from Ara, who says, why are they not making a bigger deal about the new time traveler we saw in the 1800s? It's for sure Jasper.
I think it's definitely Jasper as well.
There were some comments on YouTube that said, I don't think it's Jasper. I believe you that it is Jasper. For some reason, I'm having a really hard time reconciling the two faces simply because he looks different. Of course he does. But it was subtle, I think. If you are not watching this show closely, you could have easily missed that. And they definitely were not making a very big deal about it. So I think that may be something that we see in a flashback, either one of our characters realizing something or in a previously on, we see that scene.
Yeah. So do you remember you sent me a screenshot?
Yes.
When this character came up on screen, you said, who is this? And so I just pulled it up right now because I recently added the actor Eli Hamm, who plays Jasper, to a blog post we have on our website about who the new characters are this season.
Yeah.
And the actual man, Eli Hamm, has a very distinct mole on his cheek. And so I was like, oh, well, let me pull this picture up. Well, in the picture, he's shadowed on that side of his face. So you can't see if that is him or not. Like there's no definitive marking on him.
Uh-huh.
I think it's Jasper.
I do too, simply because I don't have any other ideas. But it's close enough. I need to pull up a picture of that screenshot and the actor side by side.
I will leave a photo. I'll do that. I'll put it in our post on our website. Okay. Our next comment comes from superfan Wayne. Wayne, I love you. This is real long, but are you ready? Mm-hmm. My thoughts on the way home. 1, Nick is jealous. It's going to turn into something bad. He tells Elliot the fish hook was found by his mom's, but he tells Alice he kept it since she gave it back, and he was creeping by the pond because he wants in. God, I hate everything about that.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Do you think Nick is jealous?
I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole.
Okay, here's what I think. Unless Nick is the greatest actor of all time, and I do not mean the actor who plays Nick, I mean the character of Nick, I don't think he's that deep. I think he's just like a goofy guy. That is my opinion of Nick. I do not want bad Nick.
I don't want ulterior motives, Nick.
No, neither do I.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Wayne says, Elliot has time traveled once. He's acting like he's one of them in front of Nick. I agree with this. The Kendrick Lamar song comes to mind right now.
That is so funny. Oh my gosh.
Wayne goes on to ask about the song that Colton was singing, Let the Water Bring Me Back to You. Who does Colton want to return to? I think the answer, he goes on to say the second song is for Dell, but the first song is about someone else. Your thoughts, Megan?
That's deeper than I took it. Doesn't he in that scene say like, Alice asks him about it. And isn't that the scene where he's like, I envision myself sailing down. But is that a made-up excuse for something else?
Perhaps.
Yeah, because now that we know that he has time traveled via the pond, who is he trying to get back to?
Yeah. Finally, Wayne says, lastly, I miss 1999, the show's 1999, and my 1999. I was a year out of college and performing improv in Orlando. Where were you in 1999? In 1814 and 1974, I didn't exist. LOL. When I read this, I laughed. I'm curious where you were, Megan, in 1999.
In 1999, I was in college. I was a junior in college. My life was not that exciting in 1999.
Mine neither. I was living with my now husband. I was working for a major automotive manufacturer here in Orange County. I mean, I'm older than you, but I was like, was I 30 yet? No, not 30 yet at that time. Yeah. God, crazy. Feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, you were not actually all that. I was 20 in 1999. You were not even close to 30. It's not like 20. You were like 28.
Oh, you're right, because I wasn't married. You're right. And I got married like at 26. So, okay.
All right. Next up, we have a comment from Catherine on YouTube who says, Rick, Vic, and Nick are characters that satellite around the Landry family, which is accurate. Her theory is Jasper is the one sending the letters to Dell.
I love it.
I want to read really quickly because this came in as we were recording. We have a new YouTube comment that I think is interesting, and I would like to read it. This comment says, it's regards to Jasper. I think Jasper is a time traveler. I think he may have written the songs he published about the 1800s from watching. I think he might be a descendant of Kat and Thomas, possibly. I don't think he's malevolent toward the Landrys, so I don't think he's writing the letters. Instead, I think he loves them and tries to help guide them. Just a theory I have after watching the last episode. So I wanted to share that because I think it's in direct contrast to that comment about Jasper writing the letters. What do you think about Jasper's intentions?
Well, he seems kind of, ominous. Ominous? Is that the word?
When he turns around?
Yeah, when he's watching them from the cliffs above. But maybe he's really just protecting them.
Because all of his interactions as 1974 Jasper have been really warm and kind and helpful. He's the one who helps Colton make his demo. He helps Kat find the information she's looking for.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Our next message is from Rayleigh. Rayleigh writes, I'm very suspicious of Nick now lurking in the woods. He seems to be way too interested in time travel. He knows too much and has seen too much now. The camera went to his bag as he was leaving. Did he take the clock? Something is up with him coming home. I did not even bump on that.
Neither did I. I hope he didn't take the clock.
Oh my God.
We've done.
Wow. But he hasn't been a part of any conversation that we've seen, like between Jacob and Elliot and them talking about the clock. Like Nick wasn't around there, like, right? So why would Nick be suspicious of the clock and maybe the clock doing something?
Yeah, did they not ever talk about the clock when Nick comes back and he's like, look at all the work you did on the house. Looks great.
Oh, maybe?
Like,
I can't recall.
I feel like Elliot makes a comment like, I don't know why I was compelled to keep this clock that doesn't work.
I think he said it to Jacob.
There's two different conversations.
Oh, gosh. Oh, boy.
The same commenter, as well as a number of other commenters, messaged to say Jacob Jr., because in the previous episode, we get Jacob whittling a boat for Jacob Jr., is Elijah's grandson from his older child, William. A number of people were letting us know.
Thank you.
About our swing and a miss on that one.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification because I cannot remember all the things.
Same. Speaking of not remembering, this next comment plays into that. The comment says, the window in Elijah's home in 1816 when Jacob returns to the past to visit his father was broken during the night of the fire? ? As we witnessed tonight on episode 8, but the home is intact as if no fire had happened when Jacob went to visit in a past episode. Very confusing.
I want to comment on, I talked about the Ouija board and the information about the fire in last Friday's episode.
Yeah.
And I will say that over the weekend, I saw a preview for this week's episode. And I believe Jacob is holding like a torch of some sort. So I was like, maybe that's the fire.
Oh.
That was being referenced.
Here's how I understood the sequence of events as referenced in this comment. When Jacob returns to the past and visits the broken window, I envision that as happening before this fire. And Elijah comments, it's just kids being kids. What I assume is happening now that we know is that some of the townspeople are perhaps reacting to Elijah having the provisions that he had in order to save himself. And my understanding is Elijah was giving provisions out to the townspeople, but obviously had to keep some for himself. So I don't think this is like an error in continuity. I just think something happened to break his window before, small break in the window, then they burn the house down later. Is that also your understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. A comment from Emerald637. Elliot is the only non-Landry who has time traveled that we know of so far. We know that Casey, or the letters KC Goodwin, the signature Kat found on the document from her former intern, with a Post-it note that says Kat, very important. I think they're referring to like the document that Casey had signed, Casey Goodwin, has a Post-it note on it, like wants Kat to see this. So I believe they're suggesting that like that is an important detail we should be aware of.
I think she's just referencing the use of Casey versus Casey.
Got it. She's saying Casey could also be a Landry.
Mm-hmm.
All right. She goes on to write, the familiarity 1814 Jacob sees in teen Colton is in his eyes and mannerisms. Even though adult Colton's voice had matured, the tone and fluctuations were still there, the same that the 8-year-old Jacob recognized and would never forget. I mean,
yeah,
I would imagine this would be true.
Yeah. He can't figure out what the similarity is, but he knows something's familiar here.
Yeah, this then makes me question everybody I've ever met in my life who feels familiar. Like, do I know them from?
Are you a time traveler?
Are you a time traveler? Have we met in the 1800s or in the future?
The final YouTube comment says, what happened to Finn, the time traveling dog, and the horse that Dell adopted to Sam? What happened indeed?
These questions remain.
Let's take a quick break and come right back to read your emails.
So much of what we want to do can seem impossible, but the highest achievers among us are the people still reaching for something. The ones who aren't satisfied to stay where they are and want to keep climbing higher. It's those people who approach the impossible and embrace it. There's a vehicle for people like that. It's called the Defender. The Defender is an icon, reimagined through thoroughly modern design. It's got a tough, rigid body design and durable, lightweight monocoque architecture for extra strength. With precise detailing and compelling proportions, the exterior of the Defender is designed with integrity. This is a vehicle capable of great things, engineered to meet challenges head-on, with an exterior that's been tested to the extreme. Experience the Defender's legendary capability, off-road and on. And there's a family of vehicles for Defender. Meet the Defender 90, Defender 110, and the 8-seat Defender 130. So are you ready to embrace the impossible? Explore the Defender at LandRoverUSA.com.
Welcome back. Let's read some emails. First comes from Jennifer, who says, Sam Bishop and Augustine. As a reminder, Samuel Augustine is Susanna's father's name. A big part of the discussion was on the link between the chess bishop and Sam Bishop. It reminded me of the earlier theory that Sam Bishop is actually Samuel Augustine. Augustine is a Catholic/Christian saint, but in his life, he was a bishop. So maybe when he was trying to come up with a fake last name, he made the connection and went with it. Also, it seems Landrys often end up with Augustine connections when they time travel, and he could be Casey's. meaning Casey's connection, if they are indeed a Landry. Jennifer also goes on to say regarding the playlist / the music, someone had asked if Hallmark would release the music from this season. 3 weeks ago, they created a Spotify playlist for the season, and they haven't updated it since then. For the original songs, they have collected clips from the show. Both can be found here. A link is left, and we will include that in our show notes as well. Hopefully, they will add more as the season goes on. I agree. I hope we get more.
Email from Francisco. He writes, Megan and Wendy, I think I need to start with the elephant in the room, Kat. I'm also annoyed that she always wants to be the hero. She thinks because she's from 2025, she knows better. And as often goes in time travel scenarios, what happened, happened. So it's almost pointless to go back. She seems obsessed, though, with the past, whether it's Thomas or Susanna or cosplaying. She's living the most important parts of her life in the past. Literally, it's really sad and a little pathetic. What do you think about that, Megan?
Well, I just want to say that, Francisco, I hope you don't mind me saying, but I'm kind of enjoying the slow speed come apart I'm watching you have over the character of Kat through the series of emails that we've received from you. And I think it would be fun to go back and read them in order just to watch the progression of your frustration with Kat. I super appreciate the emails. I am frustrated with the character of Kat as well.
Yeah.
Pathetic feels strong to me. Like,
Pathetic is not a word I like to use. Because it feels very damning.
Yeah, but I do find some of her character's actions frustrating. I command you. I don't love Kat as a witch. I will tell you, I don't love Kat as a witch. I think Kat is at her best when she's like present day parenting Alice. That's the most interesting thing to me. She has some challenges that most parents of teenagers don't have. But I kind of miss, like, if you go back and watch season 1, she's just dealing with a surly teenager who's going through some stuff. And that's my favorite Kat.
Yeah. Yeah. Francisco goes on to write, I felt bad for Dell in this episode. I'm not one to shy from calling her out when I think she needs it, but I felt bad for her. I did too. I felt that Dell and Elliot both are so isolated from time traveling, even though we know Elliot has time traveled. But they're consistently left behind. And yes. I imagine that's very difficult. Francisco goes on. It's a lengthy little paragraph, but what I find interesting at the very end, it says, also, I don't see what introducing Claire adds. I think there's more to unravel with Claire.
Yeah, I think that remains to be seen.
Yeah. He does end his email with, it wasn't the best cliffhanger, to be honest. I was like, wait, no, there's still 2 more episodes. This is not a cliffhanger.
Well, I think there's cliffhangers at the end of a number of these episodes is the point.
Yeah, I mean, they do make these episodes, they're binge worthy.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah, same.
So.
Our next email is from Sarah. Sarah says, one crazy theory that mixes a bunch of people's ideas, but hear me out. The idea that Casey lost their mother is an interesting one now, and I wonder if it's because Alice leaves and goes back in time to be with Nick as Claire. It would give us some of an answer as to why Nick came back to the show. Yeah, I share your sentiment on that. I don't want that to be the case.
I don't want any of that. God, please don't be that.
Also, the fact that he had the whole conversation with Dell about not telling Claire about time travel because she'd think he was crazy. Why else bring it up? Yes, Claire is significant here. I'm going to be displeased if Claire is in fact Alice.
Yeah, I don't like any of that. I said it at the top of the episode. I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Agree.
Nope.
It's complicated. Nope. Sarah goes on to say, I also believe Alice will tell Colton that she's a time traveler too before the season ends. It's hard to believe he didn't know who she was in the 90s now, especially after her listening to him sing the song for Dell in both the 70s and 90s.
I have some thoughts about that. If you go back and watch season 1, Colton is so freaking welcoming to Alice. Mm-hmm. He knows who she is. So I hope, do I hope there's that conversation? Maybe.
I don't know how we're going to get that conversation because that would have to come from future Colton. But I, in watching season 1, initially just watched the way Colton reacts to Alice's first arrival. And he's just like cool, kind dad in that moment. There's no dead giveaway that he knows who she is. Now that we've seen this season, as much of it as we have, and we've seen they make that song together. They sing on the demo together. Alice wasn't some passing friend of Evelyn's in 1974. She was a significant portion of his life. So I have to assume, knowing that Colton knows about time travel at this point. Look, Dell knew Alice too. Kat knew Alice too. None of these people remembered her in the future, but I have to believe that Colton does.
Because of this musical connection.
And because he's a time traveler, so he thinks about people he meets differently.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to Kat isn't thinking that she's given birth to her best friend from the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's a wild sentence.
It absolutely is. But I see what you mean now, because Kat now going forward is questioning what Colton will question. Like, any new person that I meet, do I know them from?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Alice, too. Wow. Paula sent us an email, and I'm going to pull out a couple things from it. Megan, you had made a Beauty and the Beast reference.
Mm-hmm.
Paula writes, when you use the Beast reference, he follows her around like LeFou.
LeFou.
I don't watch Disney movies. I couldn't even.
LeFou is, to put it in perspective, in the live action Beauty and the Beast, LeFou is played by Josh Gad.
Okay.
He's just like a silly, goofy sidekick.
So
she's talking about Thomas here.
Thomas is LeFou and not the Beast?
I hate it. Love you, Paula. I hate it.
He pops up to appear heroic and then does nothing. I just don't get it. What I do get, Paula hates Thomas, guys. As for Elliot, this is at least the third time we thought it was over. Don't bet on it. It's only over when one of them leaves the show.
I actually agree that we're not done with Kat and Elliot.
I'm sure we're not. Paula goes on to write, Kat and Alice are in complete role reversal, and Evelyn is the only actual teenager in the show. I agree with this. Max, Colton, Noah, and Alice are all adulting. Kat and Nick act like teenagers. Young Dell, I'm on the fence about. Claire is definitely from the past somewhere. She goes on to say, it'd be cool if it was Susanna because she could dump Nick for Kat and then Kat would be a grown-up.
So when I first read this email from Paula, I have a confession to make. I started in this moment to think maybe it is not. All along, I've said, I don't think Kat and Susanna end up together.
They're not in game.
However, I'm not sure that they are endgame, but I started to feel that the decision here is not Elliot or Thomas. That it is maybe neither Elliot nor Thomas. I am willing to accept other possibilities.
Okay, but devil's advocate here. You think Hallmark is going to go down this road?
No, I don't really, but there is a red herring here, and I can't figure out which one of them it is.
Got it. Finally, Paula agrees with me. That was definitely Jasper. So I'm happy some people think it's Jasper.
Yeah, a number of people do. You're not alone. I think you're right. You got there way faster than I did. This next email comes from Sarah, who says, I noticed on the blurb for episode 9 on the Hallmark app, it says that Jacob looks forward to the future. Could this mean we get some future time travel now? I think it does, and I also think the clock is going to be the way to the future. I'd love your thoughts on why we never saw adults in 1974 other than Jasper and Grandma Fern. We never see Evelyn's parents. We never see Colton's mom, who I believe is still alive. We never meet Dell's parents, though we know she went there alone. Did her parents send her to Lingermore alone, knowing there were no adults there? We never actually get to see the faces of Rick and Vic's parents.
I am still... That whole scene went during Rick's processional or whatever, and we see Vic in the car, and there are faceless parents in that car. Mm-hmm. That to me, it stuck with me. Like, I feel like that is suspicious isn't the right word, but like,
It's suspicious. I don't think that's the wrong word. It's notable.
notable is good. And I do think it's interesting. We haven't seen Colton's mom either, and she has been talked about quite a bit.
So, in reading this, I wondered if it's simply a case of time and budget and casting. Do we not see them simply because we don't have the time, we don't have the money to cast them, they're not a part of the bigger story we're telling? Or is there a more significant thing here? Like, are there actually no parents at Lingermore? Or do we just not ever see them? I'm trying to think of an example of a show that takes place with teenagers that we never see their parents. Or we rarely see an authority figure. And it's kind of like, I'm almost want to say 90210. Obviously, Jim and Cindy played a big role, but like Nat was almost more of an authority figure to those kids through high school than their parents were in many ways. Like the Jasper equivalent here. I don't know. I don't know if that's significant or not.
Good questions, though. Oh, Montreal. A Canadian who doesn't hate us.
You think the Canadians hate us? Because we got one bad review?
No, I think Canadians hate us because of Trump.
Oh, us as in the United States, not us as in Girls Gone Hallmark.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. Okay. Corrine writes, hi, just wanted to say that you've become my favorite Hallmark review podcast, especially for The Way Home. Thank you. I have to admit, I'm not a fan of the 1800s, and I think they've trivialized the pond now. Too many travelers and nothing secret about it anymore. But I mostly agree with all of your assessments. Kat is really getting annoying. Nick returning for now seems useless. I'm not enjoying his scenes. And I agree that Sadie, Alice, is the best thing about this show. Love her voice, and her travels are usually the most fun and interesting in my opinion. I'm looking forward to an enemies to lovers story, referring to Max and Alice. Although I do wish the show would have left 1800s behind. Your comments make it more fun, and looking forward to your review every weekend. Can't believe we only have 2 left.
For those of you that are listening to Girls Gone Hallmark just for The Way Home, give our other episodes a listen. They're a good time. Even if you're not watching the movie, just throw it on in the background.
Sure. Corrine also writes, I really hope Colton is not alive. That would be a deal breaker for me because the entire premise of season 1 was based on the loss of Colton and Jacob. I agree to some extent. It would be hard to explain away. Yeah. It's like the whole Dallas with JR showing up after he's been dead. That's a deep cut, friends.
I was going to say that's a reference that I do not understand, but as much as I would love to have Colton back, I think the way in which we get him back, either in like Ghost Colton scenes and flashbacks, might have to be enough.
Finally, she writes, now that we have Jacob back rather quickly, I thought that would be the series' end game. My theory is that following that scene where Dell is talking to Ghost Colton, which I love. Did we make up Ghost Colton?
I hope so.
When Dell is talking to Ghost Colton saying that she believes in our girls, I think the resolution or end game now is for Kat and Alice to get the answers for Dell to bring her answers and reassurance as to why Colton hid everything from her. That is how the entire family will have closure.
I like that idea. To piggyback on some of the Nixon commentary about the Nixon storyline being included as a baseline for healing, to start that discussion. The Landry women have a lot of healing to do, particularly Dell and her relationship with Kat. And I like the idea of them resolving that relationship and Kat being the hero.
Yeah, I like it too. I mean, I like the idea of Kat being the hero. You know, even though Francisco wrote, like, she's always trying to be the hero, it's a little bit of a hit and miss. But in the end, if she's the hero with getting all the answers to everything and we get a full understanding, I mean, I'm here for that.
Yeah. Our final 2 emails both come from Aaron, who says, a theory to consider. Fern talked about fearing that Colton was the one, but that he wasn't. Same with his brother. Could family lore know that a child is going to go missing, hence the one? Every generation lived in fear of their child being the one. The family knew it would happen because what happens will always happen, and they knew that child was needed in order to save the land. Anyway, fast forward to Colton and Dell. We know they get together in 74. Do we know the year they get married? Regardless, there's an 8-year age gap between when they meet and when Kat is born. Could Colton and Dell have had a baby in that 8-year window that turned out to be a boy, and out of an abundance of caution, they gave him a way to save him from the pond? It broke Dell's heart. They had another child in 1984, Kat, that they got to keep because she was a girl. Then they got pregnant again with Jacob. When they learn he's a boy, Dell can't part with another child, so they keep him.
I like this theory.
Could the older child be the secret that Dell is keeping? Would explain the baby at the beginning of the season. Plus, within the note, it said something along the lines of to keep you safe. All good questions.
All very good questions. I like that. I hadn't thought about, see, this is why I need a murder board. I hadn't thought about the timeline. I only thought about 74. Like, is she going to have this baby in 74? Or the baby in the basket. Yeah. So maybe that could have been like in the early 80s sometime.
Yeah, we've gotten not a lot, but we've gotten some speculation on who that baby is. And the speculation is it Claire? Or is it this other boy baby that had to be sent away to save him? Aaron sent a follow-up email and says, my theory, Casey is Jacob's child. Jacob marries a Goodwin that he meets while working at Lingermore. He can't afford a ring, and Alice gives him the ring from Kat so he can propose. Aaron, I do believe this has been posited before. Does that sound familiar, that the ring goes from Alice to Jacob?
Casey has not had eyes on Jacob yet, right? We have not seen a scene where Casey and Jacob are together.
We have not. Then if you go to my theory that perhaps future Alice has died young, perhaps Casey is traveling back in time to meet their Aunt Alice, who played such a significant role in her brother's life, and Casey never got to meet Alice.
In my show notes for last week, we talked about what Casey could stand for. Yeah. Or in our episode, we talked about what Casey could stand for. And you said Catherine Coyle, right?
Yes.
Also, Catherine Colton.
Yes.
Wait, was there one more? Catherine Cyrus.
Oh.
And also Kitty Cat. Because you know how Fern calls Cat Kitty Cat? Casey? I don't know.
Yes.
It's a reach, but I don't know what it would have to do with anything.
This article suggests it stands for Catherine Cassandra or Catherine Coyle. On the Way Home Reddit, theories are Catherine Cassandra, Keely Cole, witness and author shown in the show at various times. Catherine Cole, Catherine Colton, Catherine Coyle. Has anyone suggested that the C in Casey might be Claire?
Oh.
Well, the only thing we know is that we don't know a damn thing. That the next 2 episodes are hopefully going to be a wild ride full of revelations. We will be back tomorrow with our recap of The Way Home episode 9. Just 2 episodes to go.
Oh, I don't want it to end, but I need answers.
I agree. What are we going to do when this is over? We hope that you will stick around and continue being Girls Gone Hallmark listeners after the conclusion of The Way Home, because we got a long 9 months until it comes back. Thank you for listening to this episode of Girls Gone Hallmark, a Bramble Jam podcast. We'll see you tomorrow night. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right, friends, before we go, just a quick heads up. You're about to hear some ads. These little gems help us keep the show running and the Hallmark love flowing. So do with that info what you will. Grab a snack, hit the skip button, or maybe, just maybe, listen in and discover your new favorite product. Bye.